especially some of us who are new to HR practice in Canada, one of the most intriguing aspects of the practice that we'll find different from our home country is in the area of employer and labor relations. And in terms of capacity development, it's more than just taking a degree in HR. It's more than even getting the certification. There's some basic understanding that we need to have that's very practical in nature, that's currently evolving at a very fast pace. So this is a wonderful time to have this conversation. And I know Imole will throw a lot more light into how this area of our practice, of our profession, can be expanded. So I would say one of the biggest misconceptions walking into a unionized environment is the thinking that relationship has to be very combative. The relationship has to be strained. The relationship has to be unnecessarily encumbered by a lot of conflict, grievances, mediation, arbitration, ongoing basis. While this is part of employer and labor relations practice in Canada, it doesn't have to be like that. And for a lot of us, I've coached and counseled a lot of people who want to go into HR, and I would often hear, "Oh, I don't want to get into a unionized environment. It's too tough. It's too stressful. It's too combative." The reality is, it's most of it is just a misconception. There is an evolving, changing trend of the engagement with the unions. I, for one, I've actually, I did work as an HR person in a union. So I have a bit of insight into the union mentality and thinking. And I'll tell you, it's changed over the last 10 years from the traditional fisticuff kind of relationship to a more engaging one, to a more proactive one, where both the union, the members, and also the organization are finding ways to bring down the temperature, to create more room for joint problem solving. And that's why you have, in most of the collective agreements now, you do have the joint management meetings, which is an opportunity for both the union and the employer to sit down and walk through some of those difficult transactions or part of the employment relationship that's not categorically spelled out in the collective agreement. So that's the biggest misconception. And another misconception is that the unions generally do not have interest in promoting the business. For the most part, most unions have keen interest in the success and profitability of the organizations they exist. Because if the organization is not profitable, you know what's going to happen next. There's going to be layoffs, their members will be impacted, and then the usefulness of the union will be questioned. So when you engage the union with that understanding on an ongoing basis, it helps you to build a stronger relationship. And it's important for HR professionals to see beyond what the misconception is. And when you find yourself in those kind of environment, or you're interviewing for, I can talk all day about my experience interviewing labor relations professionals, especially those who are transitioning into this environment. It's always very quick for you to identify that they don't understand the uniqueness and the nuances of working in a unionized environment. So walking into a new environment or walking into an interview, it's important to have that at the back of your mind. The union is not your enemy. The union is your ally. And your ability to leverage the influence and the power of the union is solely dependent on your ability to understand the environment and then tailor your engagement, tailor your relationship. One last thing I'll say is one of the very first thing I do if I walk into any organization with a union is to ask basic questions. How long has the union been in this organization? What's the history? Have they been on strike? Who's the most powerful person in the union? And sometimes the most powerful person in the union is not actually a member of the executive committee. It might be a clerical employee or even a part-time employee who has the biggest influence on the union for whatever reason, and then engage them. Try and reach out, try and have a conversation. I'm new in this environment. I want to make this relationship work. I believe there are mutually beneficial avenues that we can take to resolve conflict. And from there, you can build a strong relationship. The thing is, once you lose credibility with the union, once you misrepresent the union or you misunderstand the union, you might not be able to recover from it. And I've seen that happen a lot of times. So just starting off the conversation around misconception, I think it's important to kind of lay that foundation about employer and labor relations. And employer and labor relations in conversations, we're talking about both what we call represented employees who are part of a bargaining unit and also employees who are not part of the union, both coexisting in the workplace. Okay. Imole, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've captured the core of these misconceptions. The only thing I want to add here is that research has shown that organizations that are unionized are 70%. I mean, they are more productive than non-unionized, especially in some industries, right? You find about 71% of productivity increase in a unionized environment, especially when they're integrative, not combative, as you have said. Right, because like Lika have said, the unions need structure. They need the business to be profitable for them to even act and get what they want for their membership. So I think HR professionals must understand that they are, the way I see them when I work with the unions, I see them as business partners. Right, you might have combative relationship. You might have we've seen some unions that very, very cancerous, and I use that word carefully, but it's not just about the union, it's also about how we're managing relationship with them. If it's integrative, if it's collaborative, you know, if you know how to manage tensions without contention, if you know how to manage conversations and also navigate the gray, it's always a solid relationship, you know. So I think fundamentally that misconception that they are the enemy must stop. We must see the union as business partners. I see them as business partners, and we can have disagreements. We can disagree to agree. So once we can kick off this misconception and approach it from that angle and navigate those difficult conversations and nuances, it becomes easier for us. It doesn't take away the toughness of working with the union, but it becomes an easier path, you know. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Imole, for that. Thank you so much, Leke, too. This is an interactive session, so everybody feel free to contribute. You can drop your questions in the chat box. Does anybody have any other contribution? Okay, so Eniola, were you trying to say something?
No, Eniola just joined. We can move to the next question.
Okay, yes, BJ, you can go ahead. Sorry, we have BJ. BJ, you can go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Balaji. So, in regards to what Leke and Imole said, so I completely agree to you know, their contribution when it comes to ELR. You know, in dealing with the union, you know, you have to consider them to be, you know, the best friend. You know, create a strong bond. You know, you know, when you have the ELR experience, like I would say, you're an hot cake in the market. Like most organizations want you. Yeah, getting that experience, trust me, you know, it takes a lot of confidence. It takes a whole lot of things. Trust me. You know, to be honest, like there are some times whereby, you know, I'll be like, when am I going to get to this point? You know, having that confidence, it's very, very, very important when relating with union. Different kind of experience, different problems keeps rising in the organization. So I am grateful to be in this part of this, you know, this forum, you know, to get to learn more experience, you know, get to, you know, learn from everyone. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, BJ, for that contribution. Also, because for us to be able to maximize time, going forward, we can drop our contributions on the chat box, and after the session, we can take our questions. So the second question will be, what are the most frequent compliance pitfalls that HR professionals encounter when managing a unionized workforce, and what practical strategies can be implemented to avoid them? Leke.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of pitfalls, as Bolaji mentioned. It takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of technical knowledge to be able to navigate the unionized environment. One of the very common pitfalls I see in new entrants into this field make is relying solely on the language of the collective agreement when dealing with interpretation issues. There's the law in terms of the Employment Standards Act, depending on whether it's provincially regulated or federally regulated organization. There's a Canada Labor Code for federally regulated organization. We have human rights law, we have privacy laws, we have occupational health and safety laws. But even with clear language in the collective agreement, there might be established practice over time. So when HR professionals who are new in labor and employee relations or new in the environment, when you're faced with any kind of challenge or any kind of interpretation issue, you have to go beyond just what is stated in black and white in the law in the collective agreement. It's very, very important to know what the past practice is, because past practice trumps language, right? Past practice can be based on just lived experience over time, or a particular interpretation or concession made by either of the parties that kind of sets aside the language of the collective agreement. And when you make a decision without knowing past practice, that can lead you into a lot of perils. One of the also mistake I see in the workplace is in the area of confidentiality. And this can be very tricky and technical. It's very important to know who to release information to, when to release information to. If the best practice around confidentiality for me is, if you are in any doubt, any iota of doubt, then don't send that email, don't copy that person. Make sure you ask, is this person required to be in the know? And in most of the organizations, when it comes to privacy breaches, you don't have a privacy person, whether in legal, whether in HR responsible. You have to work in tandem with that person. Another mistake I see on the compliance end that, and when we talk about compliance, we're talking compliance with policies, compliance with collective agreement, compliance with the law. It is very important as a basis for an HR professional in a unionized environment to understand the language of the collective agreement. You have to understand it. You have to understand the history behind the interpretation, not only understanding whether there's past practice. Sometimes it's good to understand what we call the interpretation angle to it, right? Why did we have this language in the first place? Why did our selection language say that seniority comes before qualification, or vice versa? If you don't understand the why, you find yourself in front of the union. And the thing is, one place you don't want to be is to be in front of the union with a wrong interpretation that everybody knows. It immediately questions your capacity, your professionalism, and the union would go to every length to dig that in. So it's very important on the compliance end to understand that. One also very important thing to understand in terms of compliance is also to understand that there are nuances beyond just the language of the collective agreement that might be departmental related. It might be related to a particular project, and an LR person must think within the context of the organization. And sometimes that's the extra value you bring, so that you can have you can give the right advice to business leaders in making decisions. So you are not only an expert in the law that has to do with employment law. Sometimes you have to be an expert in the law and regulations that actually impact different departments within the organization. That's why, as a labor and employee relations specialist, even if you're an individual contributor, you might find yourself sitting in meetings where board members are sitting, just because of the compliance nature of your function. It's actually one thing, like Bolaji mentioned, that makes employee and labor relations skill set very sought after. So I know Imole can add a few to these. I think it's very, very important to be very business minded and to be able to approach every transaction from that point, because the implication of not doing that, you find yourself in grievances that can proceed to mediation, that can get to arbitration. If there's one place your compliance level you don't want it to be questioned is in arbitration, because once a decision has been made, it's final. And it won't only create a precedent for your organization, it can create a precedent for the entire industry. You don't want to be that LR person that changed the dynamics of a particular transaction that impact other organizations too. So, it might sound scary, but I think with time, with practice, with knowledge and exposure to these on a consistent basis, with sitting in bespoke training where you actually understand how to navigate this, I think you can get there. And when you're there, like Bolaji said, you don't need to apply for any job. The job comes looking for you.
Absolutely. If I could quickly add to that, the truth about it is you touch on a very core aspect that most times is not obvious to many people, and that's past practice, right? Not bypassing the past practice, but let me touch on one key aspect, and that is also bypassing the CBA, right? You can't be a solid HR professional without fully understanding the CBA and ensuring that your managers, your supervisors also understand it and its interpretation. Because a wrong interpretation, of course, is a critical reason or factor that leads to grievances and arbitration and whatnot. So you really must understand your CBA. It's your Bible. That's how I put it. And another one I want to quickly touch on is inconsistent communication with the union. You must know how to navigate conversations with the union, and you can't ghost the union. You can't also be the person that is seen as inconsistent or cannot be trusted. While of course you know how to play your game with them, you must be consistent, you must be clear. They don't like to also be kept in the dark. That's something you must know about the union. So if you're a smart HR professional, you give them heads up. Hey, this is coming. You know how to manage your conversation, but at the same time, you give them heads up and you're consistent. It's a different shebang being an HR professional in the union. Your error margin is so low because once you lose your trust, believe me, they can rubbish you. Excuse my French. They don't have recourse. Right in presence of anybody, they can say what they want to say because they're not accountable to you, and that takes away. And so while working in the union is so rewarding because it's a unique aspect of this thing, you understanding the nuances, not just the books, not just the church part, the nuances, the gray part, and being able to apply it contextually is a critical factor that would help you win in a unionized environment and help you manage effectively. It's not difficult, it's just strategic.
So, Imole, thank you very much. I just had one more thing to it before we progress from here. I think the summary for me is never surprise the union.
Yes.
Right? One of the things that helps you and that can help the union help you, sometimes they can give you cues. They can give you hints on how things is going to be. If they know and can rely on you to give them heads up, like your mother said, never let them feel that they're ambushed. If you do it once, you can apologize for it. If it repeats itself, it will change the entire dynamics, and that you don't want to happen.
Thank you so much, Leke and Imole. CBA is your Bible, and there's very, very, very little space for errors. Those were my takeaways from there. So, BJ, you want to say something, but I just wanted to make it as brief as possible.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah,
just a quick question, though.
Okay, so you have a question?
Yes.
Okay, no, you can drop your question in the chat box. We'll take questions after this session. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you so much. So I'll go ahead with the tech question. What are the essential skills and knowledge that HR professionals need to effectively navigate the complexities of a unionized environment, and what resources are available for their development? Leke, please.
Okay, Imole, do you want to go first?
I can go first on this particular one.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, there are a couple of literacy that is very critical. Number one is the labor law literacy, right? There are statutes. There's a framework that governs working in a unionized environment. The same way there's a framework that governs the law in the country, the rule of law. In the unionized environment, it's very complex. So you must understand, what does the statute say? What you must understand the labor laws. You must understand the CLC if you are governed by the federal. You must understand the Employment Standard Acts. There's a labor board, that controls things. You just must have that labor law literacy. What does the law say? What does the CBA say? How do you interpret it? How do you contextualize it? Because without this, you will not be able to now. It could be like a maze, you'll not be able to navigate that. So for me, that is very critical. Then one major skill you must have as a unionized or in a unionized environment is conflict and negotiation skills. You cannot survive working in a union if you don't have these skills. You must be able to navigate the gray. That's how I put it. You must be able to manage contention without tension. You must be able to know how to say no without breaking relationship, right? Because it's a long haul. So you must know how to manage conflict. If you're always on top of your head, or you're almost, in fact, you can't be emotional driven working in a union. You have to be driven by principles. Yes, you're a human being, but you have to be driven by principles. You have to understand the anchors. And you have to know how to negotiate. Because, I've dealt with different cases where this is ridiculous. How can you even be saying this? How can you? But that is the tactics for them. They're going to come and say, this is what we want. And this is how you have to do it. And it is your responsibility to know how to navigate and that part. Then the other part I want to quickly talk about is relationship building. But you see, while I will allow Leke to talk about some other aspect, all of this is tied, especially for most of us here. And I say that respectfully because I can see that most of us here are immigrants. One of the core skills that is so important are not skills that you will learn on the job. There are skills that you must be prepared by, or prepared with, or prepared. You must know how to bring it to the fore when entering or navigating in a union environment. And that's one of the core things we bring to you in Luminous. We've had, Leke, correct me if I'm wrong, we've had over 70 people go through our program, right? And we've had fantastic testimonies and results because we are not just teaching practical. Apart from the fact that we both teach in a university, we have core experience to teach you, to help you navigate the union. And that's one of the things Luminous brings to you, the core skills to navigate it with practical examples and insights and case studies and case laws. So it's something that you can't just be said to you, something you must experience, and you must get a high level coaching perspective to it. The last one I want to talk about is just relationship building. You must know how to build relationship. You must know how to build and manage relationship, because at the end of the day, it's about relationship building. You will navigate many grays, but if you don't know how to build relationship, mend relationship, go above what they said or did not say, and still be firm and clear and know how to escalate when you need to escalate and still maintain a relationship, you are gunning for high grievance. High grievance means bad culture at a level. High grievance means more arbitration, more loss of trust, more money gone into the drain. And man, of course, you're not helping your business win in the marketplace. So I think those are some of the core skills I like to mention. Leke, you want to add some?
Okay, thank you very much, Omole. You've indeed touched a lot on a lot of the core skills. But I would say that especially at the beginning of entry into these kind of roles, you will need to have a good research skill, because in a lot of instances, the answers you're providing, like Omole said, are in the gray. And a lot of decisions are based on the balance of probabilities. So how can you provide a compelling position without providing some facts, some figures, some past practice in terms of what is available in other industries when you're going into negotiation? In fact, currently I just hired labor relations as specialist for a time period of like 4 years, because I know I'm going into bargaining and I need someone dedicated only to research. Our entire function is go into all the industries, find for me what is prevalent in terms of time, in terms of rate, in terms of specific language in the collective agreement that we want to standardize going into bargaining. So that's one skill. Another skill in addition to that is your ability to write compelling and very articulate position. Because you don't have to be a lawyer to be a labor relations person, because I've worked with fantastic labor relations professionals who don't have legal background, but when they write in a very compelling and articulate way. There's a lot of presentations that you will do, and I'm talking of the practical day-to-day skills now, to senior leadership, even to the board, right? When I was a manager, I had a director, I had a VP, but I will often go to the board for presentations because I need to provide a very compelling position on specific items in employer and labor relations. So that skill is also very important. In fact, if you have that in addition to your emerging knowledge in labor relations, you go very far. Your ability to articulate yourself in writing and also speaking can help boost also your chances of getting a job, and also for you to develop on the job, right? That's also very important. And the ability to navigate instances where you don't have precedent, it's never happened before, you don't have anything like that. For example, I've been in situations where I'm investigating, some kind of inappropriate sexual behavior that happened between two employees off-site, but at an event that is closely related to employment. There's no rule for it. There's no particular rule for it. You have to address the issue with all the information you have. And in some ways, you have to make rules as you go along, right? In order to address specific situations. So your ability to be able to be adaptive, and again, to know when to say, okay, in this situation, I really need to call in a lawyer. Because you find that in a lot of organizations, until you walk in there, there's a heavy reliance on lawyers. And then when you walk in, there's an expectation that the amount being spent on lawyers will reduce, the amount spent on consultants will reduce. So you have to be able to bring your value in, and that skill is very necessary. But of course, everything Imole has said is true. You have to understand the law. Not only understanding the law, you have to know the rules of interpretation, because it's not knowing what a particular section says or what a particular article says, but what does it mean? What is the implication of it? And how do you adapt and apply it in different contexts? What's the difference between a letter of understanding and a letter of agreement? There's a lot of technical things that we do teach in the advanced labor and employee relations course that would help you working into interviews. I can give an example. There's someone who attended one of our courses, and we talked a lot about the duty to inquire. These are folks who have gone through the master's program, MBA program in HR, and they've never had to understand what that means. And she went into an interview, and one of the first questions that was asked was centered around duty to inquire. On providing the right response, just coming fresh from the program, all the interview questions were centered around that, not knowing that the organization has actually had a lot of problem with that particular area of employment and labor relations. And that's what gave that person the job. So it is important. There's a lot of things you need to learn that we cannot cover in this webinar, but it's important to be technically sound. Again, I cannot overemphasize this. If you have that experience, or if you have that technical soundness in employer and labor relations, it is a well sought after role. And I can tell you, for HR advisors, I think the current salary starts from maybe low 70s to or 65 to about 80,000. For labor relations, for the same level, same role, current trend is starting from about 110,000 to 125,000. So you see the huge difference in salary for the same role. And I can tell you that there's a lot of professionals who are going into retirement. Currently, it's every HR labor relations leader that I've worked with in the last 10 years have retired. So it only shows you that there's an opportunity to step in, but it's good to step in with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of capacity, and also with a lot of confidence. And that's what we provide at Luminous over the 5 to 6 weeks of training we do go through. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Imole. Thank you so much, Leke. So we have 2 more questions. And the next question, Imole. The slide. Yeah, thank you. What are the best practices for HR professionals in handling difficult conversations and disputes with union representatives in a way that preserves the employer and employee relationship? Imole, I think you should go
Okay,
first
I
on this
see.
one because you
All right.
mentioned managing contention without tension in the previous.
Well, I mean, that's the first thing, right? You must have that in the front of your head. You're not going to fight with an enemy, in quotes, and you must not see them as an enemy. You must see them as strategic partners that you would most times not agree with. But yeah, so I think the first thing is you have to separate relationship. You have to separate the issue from relationship. Okay, you can't be all into your head, right? Once you get into the arena of managing people, you've gotten into the arena of legal. You've gotten into the legal arena, and anything can get to anywhere. As an HR professional in Canada, you must be aware of that. So you must separate the issue from relationship. You understand? You can disagree on the problem, but not on the person. I get. You can disagree on a statute. You can disagree on interpretation. You are both invested in a fair workplace. So in clear terms, it was not to separate things. Talk about the issue. Focus on the issue. Watch your language. Watch how you engage on things. That is important. Another critical thing is stick to the facts, not to the feelings, not to your feelings. I've investigated several situations. Investigated some situations where you see, with due respect to the females, a female crying and telling you about what happened and all of that. And at the end of the day, when you go for the investigation, you realize that there's more. What goes after say 5 is more than 6, like my people will say, right? There are always 3 sides to the story, right? Never walk by your feelings. You must stick to the fact. Sometimes you don't have all the evidence, and I think Leke touched on that a bit. And in HR, we work with balance of probability sometimes. But when you are working with balance of probability, even with the union, your balance of probability has to be probacious. Sorry, if there's any word like that. It has to be deep, strong, and defendable. Don't forget that in difficult situations and disputes, they have a big advocate that they rely on at the end of the day, which is the arbitrator, which is the final line. And most times the arbitrator, the law favors the employee more than the employer. You know what I mean? It means that you must dot all your I's and cross all your T's, right? So in handling difficult conversations, you must know how to stick to the facts, not to the feelings. Then there's a skill around debriefing and follow-up. Right, you really must know how to do this. You debrief on it, you follow up, you document what you need to document, you ensure things are in place. I think I'll stop there if Leke won't touch on that, and because of our time, I'll stop there. But those are critical skills you need to manage difficult conversations and disputes. Leke, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you very much, Imole. I think one of the practical steps I always put in place is from the strategic point of view. Every conflict in the unionized environment, you have to approach it from the point of view that this might get to arbitration.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, you have to think about cost. You have to think about the opportunity cost. You have to think about the relationship damage, the damage to credibility. If you assess all that, it will impact your trajectory. One of the things I also do from the practical point of view is, for example, in a grievance situation, before you ever sit before the union or take a people leader before the union for a grievance meeting, always have a debrief, a strategy. In some situations, you have to create speaking notes. And I'm telling you what we call the things that the elders put under the leaf to eat, right? Always have a strategy. Make sure that you debrief, because the reality is not all people leaders that have the same level of confidence in approaching conflict. So if you do that, you stand a better chance of being articulate, of being very of following like a pattern when you engage with the union. But if you walk into a conversation without preparation, things can go sideways. One of the things I do say when I'm going into those conflict situations is tell the people leader, this person is likely to be emotional. This person is likely to stay on point. When this happens, when I raise my voice, understand that I'm trying to establish my dominance in this context. It's not personal. When this person is shouting, know that he only barks, he doesn't bite. That is very important, because a lot of times there's a theatric side to grievance management and conflict resolution in a unionized environment. So you have to understand that. it's important to preserve the relationship. And it's not always the same approach all the time. Sometimes strategically, I've seen situations where the business leader will be like, you know what, I don't think this issue is a big issue. But for us, I know if we concede, it's going to be a bad precedent to follow. So you have to be able to balance that. And you have sometimes to be able to know how to get the union to step out to have a conversation. Sometimes you say, hey, can I speak to you one-on-one? Can we have this conversation off note? The ability to do that, when the union sees that you are able to do that, and over time you build credibility that way, even when you make mistakes, they're the ones who will send you a note that, hey, you're not supposed to do that way, because now they see you as an ally. Basically, underscoring what Imole has said, the best way to avoid and manage conflict, the best possible manner, is to create relationship. It is very, very easy to go into conflict situation with strong relationship. And there's a whole body of knowledge on how to do that best. But disputes in a unionized environment would happen. In fact, I walk to work every day. You know, when I get into work, I'm just waiting for the next one to drop. It is part of human nature. And because we've set up a grievance process in a collective agreement, we've got to use it. It's just like having a car, you have to drive it. It's going to happen. But how you deal with it goes to your credibility. And again, we cannot unpack everything about grievance and management or arbitration or mediation, but it's important to understand that your ability to manage grievances and dispute actually is one of the things that employers pay for when they pay premium for employer and labor relations professionals, both in the unionized context and also for exempt non-represented employees.
All right, thank you so much for that, Leke. Thank you, Imole. So we'll go to the last question. What are the essential skills and knowledge that the HR professionals need to effectively navigate the complexities of a unionized environment, and what resources are available for their development? Leke.
We've kind of mentioned a whole lot of skills, but I'll just list it. Problem solving is communication. And when I say communication, there's a lot embedded in communication. Written, oral, then your ability to adapt communication to different contexts. Then you have to be able to form partnerships within the organization. You have to be able to do, for example, and this is one of the most sought after skill set as a labor and employee relations professional. Investigations, your ability to understand investigations, your ability to partner with other, what are called centers of excellence, talent acquisition, total rewards, learning and development. You know, every other center of excellence within HR relies on a labor and employee relations specialist. One also critical area that we touch in our training that is evolving in a very, very great way is disability management. Again, sometimes last year I had to hire a labor relations professional who solely focus on disability management, because the requirement of the law is changing around the duty to accommodate, the duty to inquire, and things can easily go sideways. Since COVID, we've seen a significant uptake in disability management related activities. So it's very, very important. Of course, we've mentioned ability to negotiate, understand the collective bargaining process, be able to interpret and apply collective agreements, the law, regulations, and past practice. The resources available are endless, both you know, being in a conversation like this, registering for a training, you know, and this is my bias. I do believe a master's program in industrial relations is great, but in addition to that, you need practical. You need to be in trainings that provide practical training and knowledge in emerging trends, because as a labor relations professional, you have to continue to improve your knowledge. The landscape is changing very quickly. We are talking about AI and the impact of AI on the workforce. We have not even scratched the surface. There's going to be a huge shift in how unions approach what we call classifications going into the future. Jobs are going to change. Understanding how technology could change in the next few years would impact collective bargaining process. So it's important to keep abreast of emerging issues, because the people leaders and the business rely on you to be able to provide guidance in this area. And again, that's how to drive your value. When you start talking about something that is going to impact the business in the next 5 years, trust me, the people leaders want you close by because they want to succeed too. So it's important to that continuous learning culture is very important for employer and labor relations professional. And of course, there are free resources, there are ones that you have to pay for. And as you know, good labor and employee relations training costs very, very, very much. If you check Queen's University, if you check University of Toronto, you see a whole lot of resources in employer and labor relations. Osgood Law, where I'm an alumni of, they actually have a lot of continuous professional development on employer and labor relations, so you can check it out.
All right, thank you so much for that, Leke. Thank you, Imole. Thank you so much, Leke, for the insightful session. After hearing all of this, we all know that there's a lot to unpack when it comes to labor relations, right? So I would take 2 questions and I'll allow Imole to dive into details about the course. Oluwayemisi had a question. Do you have scenario examples to share with us?
I'm sure she was referring to one of the things we had responded to. I mean, there are tons of scenarios that we have to share, and I think we'll probably go deep into that in class. But I want to quickly drop something about what trends and something Leke has said. So we've seen an uptick, so a significant increase and rise of reason or rise of labor relations in Canada. So Gallup did they did a survey 2 years ago, and 71% of Canadians supports labor relations, unionization, right? So we're seeing a significant spike. There was a between 2023 and 2024, we had between 40 to 45% increase in strike action. Right? Apart from the fact that AI, like Leke has talked about, is changing. People are getting more agitated. They are asking for more. And the younger generations are looking for more representation. Are you getting it? So we must know that if you have the competencies around being unionized or working in a unionized environment is something very, very powerful, very powerful. Should I go ahead, Jennifer, to talk about
yes, you can go ahead. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think we can ask questions after then. But after hearing all of this, you need to know that you have Luminous on the speed dial to help you navigate this. And what we are offering is our Advanced Labor Relations Certificate course. This course is, Leke talked about Osgood and he talked about Queen's, and all of these courses, they are part of the very few organizations that provide this training. I can't tell you the amount of thousands I've invested in trainings. The same with Leke, and that's because we see the value of this in the marketplace. But this is what we are putting together, for our people, for professionals, So by the end of this course, this training, you would have a deep understanding of the Canadian labor landscape. You would know how to negotiate, all the key strategies and skills to negotiate and effectively, navigate collective bargaining. You have real case studies, that would be able to understand the practical, not just theoretical knowledge of what happens in the unionized environment, and you have the understanding of the legal aspect of labor relations to ensure compliance with the Canadian regulations. Then effective communication. We talked about communication, about conflict resolution, conflict management. These are skills that we bring to the table. You'll be able to navigate them effectively amongst many other things. It is a certificate course. We are certified by HRCI, so you are able to also get CPD hours after you take this course. You also have a badge that you can share on LinkedIn, but more importantly is that this course helps you. So this is one of the testimonials. This is somebody who has been in HR for a while and they wanted to transition. This course helped it. I mean, she literally did a powerful video testimonial, talked about how the course helped her to approach real world situation. She got a job right after the course because, hey guys, in HR, it's so much about speaking the language. It's so much understanding how to speak the language and how to apply it to the nuances of working in labor relations in Canada. And like we said, labor relations professionals are hot cake right now. This is also another lady who did our course, and it changed. I mean, she couldn't believe it. The amount she's earning right now, after for a long time looking for a job in HR, just making that investment, making an investment, and that's the word. It's changed our landscape for her. I mean, this is also another testimonial. I mean, and you can see their names and their faces. These are real people. We are not trying to package anything for anyone because we know the quality of what we want. We have directors, literally, we have directors and HR managers attending our courses, because having the job in Canada is one thing, being able to keep the job is another thing. This is also one project I'm working on. People lose their jobs. 34% of immigrants lose their job, more than more than Canadians. 34% more of immigrants lose their job after getting a job, right, in Canada. And that's because it's a different ball game. And when you're empowered like this, and you have coaches on the dial, you have Leke, you have myself, you have a support group helping you to navigate this, it becomes easy for you. It's an investment that is going to continuously speak for you, and we keep getting all these testimonials from people. Leke is a director, so imagine the things that you're going to. He works in one of the top organizations in Canada. Imagine the things he's going to teach you. You coming to class, right, is as if you're speaking to the director on the other side. You're fully prepared. You have all it takes, to be confident in not just approaching labor relations, but confident approaching that interview, confident speaking in front of whoever. Why? Because you're trained by the best. I teach HR at University of, there's an error here. I'm not a manager in Port of Vancouver, but I'm the HR director for Luminos, and I teach HR at University of Calgary. I've been doing this for over 15 years. We are teaching you real experience, real practical dimensions. Sorry about the error on that other slide from the team. Real practical dimensions. And so what are you getting? You're getting 100% online. There are weekend classes. That's for those of you working. So there's no disruption. It's 8 sessions, 100% online. And the cost is, what we are doing is giving it to you at a crazy cheap amount. Is what, $1,500, but early bird is $1,000. And $1,000, you're getting what you're going to get put together no less than $15,000. And you can literally go and do this check, right? And we're doing this just to ensure that you get all the support. You know that you're getting real answers, and you are confident. So much about confidence, being able to approach your next stuff. A lot of us, some people are just stuck in talent management or recruitment. Some people have not even been able to transition into HR. But this is an investment that we've tested over and over and over, and we always get testimonials over and over, right? And we also provide you one-on-one consultation. So we don't just help you navigate or get the job. We're also there, is a one-time anyway, because I know how much I charge per hour. I know how much Leke charges per hour. The truth about it is we're here to support you. This is an investment that there's no need to gainsaying about it. You're going to see the reward over and over. So it's just for $1,000 today. If you if you pay today, the link has been dropped. The link will be dropped in the chat, so that you can, those of you that are interested. I know for some people it's a stretch, but the truth about it is it's an investment. We've dropped the link there. You have 3 days to think about it. That's if you can't pay right now. You have 3 days to think about it or to plan towards it. But as a matter of fact, based on all the results we've gotten and the impact and the confidence, it's a reward or it's an investment. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hand it over. Leke, do you have any other thing you want to say, or hand it over to Jennifer? You can reach out to the team. You can, if you have any questions, you can drop or you want us to engage you, somebody in the team will engage you. You can drop your contact, but that is it. Thank you so much. BJ, your hand is up. I return it back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Imole. BJ, you can go ahead and ask a question. I know you had a question earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer. honestly, I must say, like this quick section, I found it so interesting to me. To be honest, I feel like we shouldn't stop now. Like we should just keep having the conversation. You know? Yeah, like I'm just expressing how I feel right now. Like I love learning. You know, there is always something to learn, and you know, one thing in HR that I feel it's most like it's really important to me is experience. You know, how are you able to deal with some, because when it comes to HR, like problems always keep coming up, different problems, like some problems whereby you're not even expecting. Before you know, before you resume back to office, like what's going on? Like work never stops. There's always something to do. There's always something to do. And honestly, I so much enjoy this this section. So like my quick question is just, you know, when it comes to dealing with managers with a very strong personality types, you know, there are some managers whereby just because they work in the HR, you know, they feel they do much more better than you. You get what I mean? Because they're working in some area in HR, you know, they feel they know much more better than you. But you working in that position, you know what does the law says. This is what the law says. This is what the CBA says. You know. So I just wanted to find out, how do you deal with, you know, managers with strong personality types?
Okay.
So can I take this?
Okay, sorry. Before you go ahead, just to respect other people's time. So we would like to say the session has officially come to an end, but those who are welcome to stay to listen to the questions and the answers, you can also stay. But I encourage everyone to sign up, right? Like Imole said, is an investment, and investments they don't come cheap. We're all in HR. We know that even our professional organizations, to renew membership is expensive, right? So it's an investment. I encourage everyone to actually register for the course. So officially, the session has come to an end. Anybody that wants to stay, you're welcome to stay. Leke, you can go ahead and answer the question. It's fine.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer. So I do like